This is Toon Talk Weekly, episode 251. This week, Brad and I check out an 80s cartoon from the UK when we watch an episode of 1983's Bananaman.
Sinister forces were plotting the destruction of Bananaman. Yes, fans, it was evil General Blight and his old school chum, Dr. Gloom.
I tell you, Doctor, I could take over the world if it weren't for Bananaman. Sometimes I think he's indestructible.
But we don't have to destroy him, Beaky.
I told you never to use that name.
Certain. Anyway, I can deal with the big banana. Just get into my surgery. Leave the rest to me.
The day just keeps getting better.
Boy.
Where is that kid?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Toon Talk Weekly. This is the cartoon podcast every single week where we talk about a different cartoon. I say we because I'm Jake Williams, but I brought along my good buddy Brad Chmielewski to chat cartoons once again this week. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. Good to be back talking about cartoons again, although I have a feeling I didn't do a good job this week.
I don't even know where you came across this and why you thought this would be a good idea.
I think the better part is that I've come across it multiple times, looked at it and said, we should watch this, look into it, maybe not yet. And now we're here. So it's got a name. That's the thing that it's got. It's got the name that actually pulled me in.
Okay, yeah.
Of course, this week we're talking about the show Bananaman. Of course, everyone's heard of Bananaman, right?
I'm sure 0 people in the United States have heard about Bananaman.
That's the other thing that I will say about this show. So this was a 1983 cartoon. It primarily aired in Great Britain, in the UK, and what I can find out is that I think it maybe came over here eventually, but it definitely wasn't a highlight cartoon. But what's so interesting about this is, like, I think sometimes on the show, it's very easy to forget that, you know, we go back and watch our favorite 80s stuff and 90s stuff from kids like Nicktoons or Transformers or whatever it might be. But also that, like, not everything was global. Not everything popular was necessarily global at that time. Right?
That's true, yeah. It's very easy. Like, today, a show may come out like Adventure Time, and it's around the world.
Right. Or, like, I bet SpongeBob was the same way, right? Like, there were some pretty heavy hitters that now, it just seems like so easy. I think we do this a lot with TV shows, too. Like, lots of people... So many people around the world have Netflix or Amazon or something, so they've seen Stranger Things, or they have HBO and they've seen Westworld, and those are like common shows that people talk about. But back in the 80s, 90s, that wasn't necessarily the case that everything was global. I'm sure that things were, you know, big shows like The Simpsons or Flintstones or something like went global, but yeah. But you got to imagine, like, regionally, kids and people had their own shows they were producing, so. To us, Bananaman, the 1983 cartoon, meant nothing because we never saw it. We had never heard of it, right? We had our own weird 80s cartoons.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting one. I love the name. And right off the bat, when I saw who the character was, he very much reminded me of a version of, like, The Tick or something like that. That's kind of what I got most from it. But he's a fictional character, this is Bananaman, who appeared in British comics and comic books. He's kind of a parody of traditional superheroes, and you learn that very, very early on in the episodes. Bananaman is portrayed as a schoolboy who is transformed into this, like, muscular fighting machine superhero when he eats a banana, anytime he eats a banana. And I haven't quite got how he goes back to being a kid, so I'm just going to assume he just decides.
So this was almost a take on, like, Popeye, who ate his spinach and became really big.
Yeah, or like I got like a Superman vibe. Instead of like having to go change, he just pops a banana. He's good. But yeah, like I think Popeye's a good reference there. It was published by DC Thompson and Co. and drawn by artist John Gearing. The TV show itself and the character were created by Steve Bright, and it was 1983 to 1986, 3 total seasons of the show for 40 episodes. Each episode was about 5 minutes in length, which is very uncommon, especially for U.S. shows. We always talk about the 11 and the 22.
Yeah. Weird thing I heard about Bananas this week was I was watching Adams Ruins Everything, and they're talking about like the Berlin Wall coming down. And one thing when it did, when the West came over, like when it fell, the first thing they did was like buy crates of bananas. Like they must not have got bananas on the other side of the wall, but they were getting like tons of bananas and eating them, and it was a weird little factoid in that episode.
Like that was the thing that freedom meant to them, to have the city not separated anymore.
No, I think it was just probably something they couldn't get on the one side. Like the communist side was like, no bananas, but we love Bananaman.
Yeah, please take our cartoon. If you do want another side note, if you want to watch a really fun thing about bananas, I don't know the episode title, but there's an episode of the Comedy Central show Drunk History, where they talk about the guy who basically started the business of selling bananas and like found out that like, wait, people like, I have so many of these and I could just charge a ton for them because people like them. Like they don't have bananas here. And basically how he turned bananas into an industry and made tons of money.
Okay.
Told through the lens of a drunk person. So it makes it even better.
Nice.
The show aired on the BBC, it's Bananaman, and aired on US and Nickelodeon as a companion piece to Danger Mouse, which we actually covered on this podcast.
That makes sense that it would air with Danger Mouse, because Danger Mouse is also not very good.
Oh, man. Right out the bat. Brad's queuing up a new Bobby's World already. It was produced by Flix Films and DC Thompson's Other Classics for Abbey Home Entertainment in association with Jim Henson's production. So kind of interesting. It did have a very interesting look to it. The cartoon, it reminds me of like, I don't know how to put this. There's like a blobby, like frumpiness to the characters, right? They all have this like loose style. And I can't think of any artists in particular whose style it reminds me of, but it reminds me of basically any early, like almost like newspaper comic type of character you would see that have like the rounded faces a little bit, the features, the longer nose, that kind of thing. It definitely feels like an art style from an era gone by, which is interesting. But, as we see with a lot of things today, that could be an art style that could actually come back and do well. Especially,
maybe like a little bit like a Bill Plumpton kind of his style of characters and drawings are a little more loose and kind of weirdly shaped.
Yeah, I think even your like Popeye reference was a good one, like kind of how the characters in that looked. Like there's not like a defined form for them necessarily, like just put roundness on them and it's good. It could be fun. So that's what I kind of got from Bananaman. So I will say, we'll preface this with, we caught a couple of episodes. I think the first 2 of the series that were ever released. I found a cool video, actually. If you want to watch any of this, it is free on YouTube because apparently, I don't know what the licensing is, but people put up entire seasons of it, so you can just watch it over there.
Okay.
But boy, watching it the way I did, which is like just back to back, is like, oh boy, I don't know.
That's what I did, and I have zero context for what happened. I get there's a bad guy, Bananaman stops him, and then there's like, oh man, but where's Bananaman? And then the kid's like, and that's every episode.
I don't even need to talk about an episode. Brad just did it. That's it. Yeah, I mean, that is the formula. It felt a little bit like, we'll talk about a couple of the plots here, but it felt a little bit like, was it Hong Kong Phooey or one of those shows that we watched that just kind of just suddenly wraps itself up and it's like, oh, well, I'm just a janitor. I didn't do anything. But again, it is a parody on superhero shows and like that kind of like caper kind of action. So I totally get that they needed a formula like this.
Yeah. Do you think we're missing something not being British and like maybe the humor is falling short for us a little bit?
Possibly. I guess if we are missing something and you are British and you watched this cartoon as a kid, email us toontalkweekly@gmail.com because I want to learn more about it. But
if you want to admit that you watched it,
you could have watched it. Like, I don't know. I can't think of an embarrassing thing I watched as a kid. I'm sure all of it was, but but I couldn't think of a good example about it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're missing anything. I think it's exactly what it is. And I also think that this, we talk about this a lot when we go back and watch stuff from like the 80s or the 90s, that there's a passage of time where cartoons are this now. And so looking back at the slow pace of a cartoon like this feels weird. Like it feels less good because we've seen what great animation can come out now, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think we're missing anything. I think that's just the show. I think it's the way it is. But let's talk about a few episodes. Did you watch them in order as well, Brad?
Yeah, I just hit play. I'm not really sure where I stopped. I think the last one I watched was something about like a princess was captured in a tower, but she was actually just a TV recording, and the bad guy was like, "I tricked you, Bananaman."
Okay, well, I'll just go back to being a teenager now. Let's talk about these first couple then, at least, and then if any other stories popped out, we'll bring those up. But the very first episode of the series from 1983 was called Bananaman Meets Dr. Gloom, and right off the bat, exactly what you said happened, Brad. Like you're thrown right into like a context of villain here is talking to his second in command villain, Dr. Gloom, and he's going to take care of Bananaman. And I step back and say, who are these people? I don't really know what's going on. In this episode, Dr. Gloom's plan here, and again, guys, this happens over 5 minutes, so it's very quick. His plan here is to get Bananaman into his lair so he can perform like surgery on him, or like therapy, I guess. And the way he does that was a news reporter is reporting, and over the TV, there's lots of like, I don't want to call it fourth wall breaking because it's not talking to us, but genre breaking, where like the reporter knows exactly what she's talking about, and she even pokes out of the TV sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's something like they're going to cancel the late night movie. And this teenage boy, this young boy who is Bananaman, is upset about it. So he springs into action by eating a banana and going to take on Dr. Gloom himself. Once there, Dr. Gloom reveals that he has some sort of like laser ray that he can shoot at Bananaman, and it makes him younger. Okay. So he turns him into a teenager, and then finally turns him into a baby. Then he sends this photo around to everybody to be like, well, look how safe your world is now. Bananaman's a baby. Then, out of nowhere, there's this crow that shows up, or this black bird, and it's just like, what are you doing, baby? Eat this banana. And he's like, oh yeah, he eats a banana, becomes Bananaman again. When Dr. Gloom goes to shoot the ray at him again to turn him into a kid, he says, reflecting on this, it should go to you instead. And of course, reflecting a joke because he's holding up a mirror. Yeah. To reflect the ray and make Dr. Gloom a baby.
Will you please be quiet? How can I carry on a conversation without a bracket? Give the kid a banana. That'll quieten him. Oh, yes. Nicky, have a banana.
Hello! Hello!
It's just a little problem, General, and I'll call you back. And you, prepare to become a banana tot again.
No. On reflection, it's your turn, Doc.
But this, yeah. I'll go ahead and continue.
I was going to say, no, then the end of the episode is literally like him going like, no, well, I guess I'm just a teenager. Bananaman saved the day. What a weird thing.
Mm-hmm. But this episode also started out, like you said, we were just kind of thrown into this. There's this random crow that's like, hey, I'm your sidekick. Mm-hmm. Eat this. But then also Bananaman as a kid is playing basically what felt like Go Fish, but it was like Happy Family. And so right off the bat, I was confused as like, is this a game that I don't know that's like popular in Britain? That's like a Go Fish ripoff. And so like within the first 45 seconds, I was like, I don't understand this. I'm basically watching a show in another language.
Right. And if I recall correctly, it was a narrator introducing it, right? Yeah. He was like saying what was going on. So yeah, it was like, Bananaman at home playing Happy Family. What if Go Fish is a ripoff of Happy Family?
Yeah, well, that. Yeah, I don't know. It could be.
But I know what you're saying. Yeah, I guess that's what you're saying. Like, are we missing something? That I guess that was the one moment that comes to mind that I was like, oh boy. Yeah, I just let it go over my head. I didn't even stop to think about it for a minute. So, so that was the first episode. And again, watching these back to back, the second episode, The Big Breakout. Jumped right into it, which was a group of criminals were in jail. They had the great like traditional cartoon getup of criminals, of the like striped, suits. And they're going to be busted out by this villain called the Mole. And the Mole is this pig-like looking guy who drives this basically underground drill tank kind of thing. Very much reminded me of like a Mega Man boss, basically. And he's going to drill them out a hole, but Bananaman, of course, springs into action. He at one point, he gets into the tunnel. How did he even get into the tunnel? Now I'm like totally losing it. Did he just jump down or like could drill through?
They had like a weird drill that drilled in there.
So he gets down to this tunnel, and the bad guys are running away, and the Mole kind of like turns around to confront Bananaman. And multiple things happen here. He shoots out this is the Mole here. He shoots out like a metal wall, and the wall is supposed to stop Bananaman. However, Bananaman's got lasers, so he can just like cut a silhouette and walk through it. And I think the second thing to happen, which ends the Mole's reign of terror here, is that he shoots a cannonball down this tunnel. Bananaman just like kicks it back to him. It hits his like drill thing down, and now suddenly the Mole is just drilling towards the center of the earth, never to be seen again.
Yeah,
we don't get to learn anything else about the Mole. And so Bananaman catches up to, God, it feels so weird saying Bananaman as like that's the hero I'm talking about.
That's
today.
the hero's name. Yeah.
He catches up to the four criminals. They do bring up one question though, which is like they're walking out of the tunnel. He's walking them like to the police. And one of the criminals is like, well, Bananaman, there's four of us. Like, what if we were to all just split? And he's like, I bet you won't. And then it ends. They just brings him to the cops. Like the criminals had the idea to get away and they decided not to.
So it's goodbye. We won't see you again, Mr. Mole.
Hands up. Now start walking to the exit.
There are four of us, Big Banana. What'll you do if we split?
Quiet. This banana's loaded, and I won't hesitate to use it. So just keep walking.
Right. And this is the perfect example, Brad, of how you mentioned the episode's end, which is Bananaman standing in a crowd as a teenager holding a banana, and the crowd saying, oh, I wonder why Bananaman's not here. So weird. Well, at least he saved the day. And the kid going, tee-hee, it's me.
Yeah. But the split comment, I think, was like a joke on the banana.
Yeah.
That was probably very humorous to some Brits. And
well, no, but I think that there is a lot of that like cheesy pun humor in this.
Yeah.
And again, I relate it to being a product of the time. Like those jokes were fine, but that was enough. Like kind of like we talk about in our animation industry, right? Like if you're going to do tutorials online, there was a time 8 to 10 years ago where you could do a tutorial about like how to add materials to things in this program. You could do simple things because people didn't know that, but now the knowledge is so advanced that like, I don't know, things change.
Yeah.
The language of cartoons has changed.
Yeah. But the next couple on here, like I can't even tell you really what happened on them because I watched them, but they're aliens. Like aliens show up in 2 of the episodes.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I lost it. Like, I think I missed what happened. And then I was like, I don't know. I just kept watching because I couldn't tell when one ended and one began either.
Yeah, that's definitely the product, I think, of watching a one online that just kind of like doesn't have credits or anything like that. And man, you got to pack a lot into 5 minutes of episode. Honestly, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges. But
how the kid turns into the Bananaman is pretty funny. Like that animation, like he does the like shrinks down and then like his gut gets real big to cover up the animation. Then it drops again and he's Bananaman.
Yeah.
So that was kind of neat.
That was fun. And there was also a running gag in the 2 that I saw, which was when he springs into action, there's a scene that looks like he's flying fast. But he's always doing something different in that scene instead of flying like Superman would with his arms outstretched, right? So in the first one, he was running in midair. And I think the second one, he was swimming.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's maybe a running gag of like different ways he can spring into action or whatever. So so those were fun, man. There were some fun moments. There's something warm and heartfelt about the show, like, or not heartfelt, like just nostalgic. Like this feels like it would be a perfect Saturday morning cartoon that I would remember from my childhood. However, I don't because it wasn't local to me. So what were your general thoughts on the show? I mean, I clearly, it sounds like we're not like 100% on board with Bananaman being one of our favorite cartoons of all time. But what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's tough because I didn't watch it growing up, so I'm tossed into this show that's it's outdated now, so it's hard for me to like get in the mindset of like, wait, what am I watching here? This makes no sense. I have zero context for this. What's funny about it that he eats a banana and he's a superhero, that they're making fun of the superheroes. I felt a little lost, and so that was my problem with the show. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to get out of this.
Yeah, I think they packed the superhero kind of like parody into a very tight 5 minutes, and sometimes that can feel very fast. But because it was based on a comic book, I wonder if that's something that would read way better in a comic.
Yeah.
Like you would get the time to let that kind of thing breathe. We're, of course, not telling the creators of Bananaman to go edit your show from 30 years ago. but it's kind of interesting. I mainly chose the show because I wanted to know what it felt like to maybe watch a cartoon from a different country that we really didn't have, aside from it coming to the U.S. later. Like, it's not a show that was on TV that I had ever seen anything about until now. So I think that just thought is really interesting, of like somebody in some other country, and if you listen to the show again, let us know, like, could have grown up with this stuff. And it's not common stuff. Like, if I just met you, Brad, because we're both, born in America, even though we're born, halfway across the country from each other, there's probably some connection from like a kid thing I could bring up to you that you also would know.
Yeah, right.
But with different countries, heck, even Canada, like, could have been different, right? Like, so it's just kind of interesting to me. But Bananaman as like the parody superhero, I don't know. Maybe it was one of the earlier incarnations of it. However, I think if you're looking for a parody superhero cartoon and it doesn't have to specifically be from the 80s, I think there are other cartoons that have done it better. Heck, we just talked about Freakazoid a couple weeks ago, and that's kind of what Freakazoid is, right?
If you wanted to, like, you'd probably go in here to this series and probably pull out some pretty funny like memes and images that might get some attention because people are like, oh, I remember that show, but they have no idea like how to get to it or really what it was called. So, and because a lot of the characters are really weird looking and awkward, and they're talking on phones that are bananas, and just the shapes feel really weird. So the meme aspect of it feels like it could be there too, like a rehash of it.
I mean, you could be the guy, Brad, that like brings back Bananaman but never says anything about it. You just keep using like screenshots from the show. Puts words over it.
There's so much stuff where people are like talking on phones, just like reading papers, funny looks. Yeah.
Just do an illustration series where you start replacing everyday objects with bananas. It's actually not a bad idea, and has also probably been done. But well, that's going to do it for this episode. Let's get out of here. I don't think Brad and I can muster anything else about Bananaman because I think we get it. We get what the show's about now. I'm glad I finally checked it out because, again, I come across it every so often, and I finally decided like now was the time. So, Brad, where can people find out more about you when you're not recording Toon Talk Weekly?
So you can follow me on Twitter. It's @brad, and my blog is digitalhitchhiker.com.
Great, guys, go check them out over there. You can follow me on Twitter @Jacob Williams. And, of course, if you want more Toon Talk Weekly, we're all over the place @Toon Talk Weekly on Twitter, Facebook.com/Toon Talk Weekly. We're over on Google Plus as Toon Talk Weekly, and Instagram.com/Toon Talk Weekly as well. Our email, I mentioned it earlier, but toontalkweekly@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of Bananaman if you checked out some episodes, or if you grew up with the show, like, or the comic books. Like, is there something we're missing? Or like, I guess I want to know more about the significance of like, was this show popular at the time? Was it something that you actually remember now? And like, maybe like I do with Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like, go back and watch like a thing from your childhood, And finally, toontalkweekly.com, the main hub for the show. You can find all of our other episodes over there as well. So yeah, man, that's going to do it for this week's episode. But as always, we'll be back next week with another cartoon.
Take care.
To learn more about the show, visit toontalkweekly.com or follow us on Twitter @ToonTalkWeekly.